Hey guys, I want to welcome you everyone into YouTube Model Builders Tuesday night's presentation. Tonight we have the pleasure of having Ron Pare. I'm your host, Geno Sharp, and welcome to the first edition of the Geno Show. Tonight's presentation is going to be on detailed scenes, and just a reminder to all the viewers, I want you to keep checking all the YouTube Model Builders websites for new information on new hangouts and shows. It's YouTubeModelBuilders.com for all the latest news. On the live show hosted by Big Bill Graham, the EMAG, which comes out every bi-monthly, and this month there'll be an issue this month. You can sign up for a subscription where it'll be automatically emailed to you. There's a link on the YouTube Model Builder site under the EMAG. And plus, don't forget about the new and improved presentations. Myself, along with Barry and Dude and Troy, we're each going to take over a hangout once a month, and there'll be a schedule posted under the website under the hangouts as well. As I said, tonight our presentation is going to be on scene design and detailed scenes, and I hope this turns into a very interactive hangout. Please post your questions, and at this point we'll turn it over to Ron, and he'll start some discussion on some detailed scenes.
Thank you very much, Geno. Hope you're all doing good tonight. I've got a couple of things that I'd like to share about detailed scenes. Let me pull up a photo here. The kit I'm about to show is a kit that I recently did a video about. It's called Streeters in Clearbrook. Oh, I have this in a folder ready, guys. Honest. Okay, here we go. Right here. So, you guys see that?
Yes.
So this is Streeters in Clearbrook, one of the craftsman kits that I've built, and it's kind of an expensive way to get into how to detail a kit. And the reason why it's expensive is the price, but the reason why it's a good way to get into the project is because it comes with a ton of detail parts in it. So I'm going to pop off for 1 second from this. Juggling here. So if you focus on my screen here, in most of these kits you'll get a box. In these boxes they come with tons of these metal detail parts. Like this is pigeons for the roof, and we've got a metal bathtub with garbage in it here, and this is a box to go on a dock. And you know, all these little things are the things that are missing from most scenes, and you know, adding a little bit of detail goes a long way because it's something that people don't normally see. Know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So let's get back to Streeters in Clearbrook and do another one here. Do another picture. So it's more than just details, though, in a scene. So the picture I'm about to show here shows the... So I'm actually... Okay.
Hey, when you go about coming up with your concept on your scene, do you usually pick your structure first and then design the scene around it, or do you kind of have a scene in mind and then look for your structure?
Well, sometimes what I do is, you know, like for my Marksberry's Cove, I scratch built a warehouse because I needed something there and I really didn't want to go out and buy something. So I'm going to show this first. So this is Streeters and Clearbrook, and this is the front of the building, right? So the part of the detail I want to explain here is kind of like a multi-level design, so that, you know, you look at most layouts and they're like the Pacific Palace, it's called, you know, or the Plywood Palace, you know, where it's just plywood, it's completely flat. There's not a prototype in the world that's as flat as that, you know. So on the back of this building, if I look over at this picture, you can see that the white building is where the front of this scene was, and then the brick building on the bottom is a whole inch and a quarter, inch and a half down from the front. So the detail in this layout is more than just the parts. It is the fact that you're hiding scenes behind buildings in a tiered sort of way. You know what I mean?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, Ron, we got a question for you. It says, do you mostly scratch build or build kits?
The more experience I get, the more I scratch build.
Okay.
Because I think it's all about confidence. You know, my experience in building kits is kind of like I've done it for clients for many years, so it was, you know, it's kind of practice. It's not like I super enjoyed every single one of them, you know. Like, you know, you get inspired when it's a new kit, but you know, if it's the same kit you've done 10 times over, like, I'm pretty sick of building diamond scale turntables, I'll tell you that much. So you said, what was your question that I skipped over because I've got okay, Marksberry's Cove. So let me get over to these photos. Can you ask that question again?
Yeah, the question was, do you mostly scratch build or do you build kits?
No, the one that you asked me before that.
Oh, when you're coming up with a scene, do you try to pick out your scene and then pick your structure for it, or do you?
Yeah. Okay, I got an example.
Then do the scene around it.
Yeah, I got an example here. I'm just trying to find it. I've got an entire photo from the entire diorama build. So there's parts of this photo that's out of focus. Sorry. But the back of the photo is going to explain my part. So in the back here, this is a Sierra West kit. The building in the front corner. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. I'll pop over here so I can see. Well, in the background, you can see the sawhorses, which are totally way out of scale. Like, HO scale would be half to quarter of the size they are. It just that's perspective right there, you know.
Right.
But so I had a spot there that I had to fill, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had built a kit years ago called Minerva Casket Co., and it had this really cool steel roof that it was made out of card, and you had to paint it with silver paint. I'm just trying to find a good photo here. And you paint it with silver paint, but everything's made out of cereal box on the roof of this building.
Is that something you normally use a lot of?
Every chance I get. Like, cereal boxes is free.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's always around. So the blue building here to the left is that building I scratch built, and it's basically a cereal box, square and end pieces. Then I glued the boards on top of the cereal box. And the roof is plain cereal box with strips of cereal box to do the board and batten kind of thing. And it's painted silver, and the hip joints are covered with plain paper. And actually, looking at it now, I should have made it a lot thinner.
It looks really good.
You know how we are, Geno. We're most critical of our own work.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm pretty happy with this kit. But you know, this kit has been this diorama has been being built for the last 5 years. So it's got a lot of work left to go on it. Lots of good time on it left.
Right. Is that one of your personal dioramas?
It's, yeah, yes and no. Like, it doesn't fit my local area in any way. It's a fantasy kind of thing. So one day I'm gonna want to sell it, but like I said, I probably got 2 or 3 years of spending a week here or a week there screwing around with it.
Right.
So yeah. However, I've got another photo. The next kit I'm going to build in this, that's going to go right beside it. It's going to be the next. It's going to be on the next module, right beside it, and it's going to be like part of the same scene. Oh, where did I put those? Oh, I don't have the photos handy. Oh, there I do. Okay. Oops. So this is the shipyard at Foss Landing, and it's going to go in, and they're kind of building an old masted ship boat. So it's, you know, it's hard to explain to somebody that spending the amount of money that this kit costs is worth it. But the amount of time you end up working on the kit this size and complexity, and you know, if you spend a couple $100 on a kit, it you know, you're going to be more patient with it.
Right.
You know, and if you're less patient with it than it needs, you're going to waste your money. And I've heard people say that these kits are a waste of money, and I will agree with them in only one point, is that if you do not give this kit the respect it deserves, you wasted your money. You know, otherwise, a kit like this will teach you so much stuff. It holds your hand through the whole thing.
Right. Now, for like the entry-level modeler that's looking to get into maybe a craftsman-style kit design, what kind of starter kit would you recommend for somebody for a beginner to start with?
You know, I would say any kit from a number of North American companies that is under $100. You can judge it like it all depends on the instructions. But the thing is if you spend the money on the kit I have on the screen right now, you're going to get a lot more instruction.
I was thinking, say now, a couple of the craftsman kits that I have attempted to venture out on, some of the instructions that come with these things are not the best in the world.
Yeah. So it's important to do that, to find a company that's interested in. Like, look at this book. It's 109 pages, but it's a wire-bound book, and it's not full color. It doesn't need to be. It tells you so much stuff in it. It's a step-by-step. You know, and some craftsman kits are for an experienced modeler.
Right.
You know, I'd say that these expensive kits are, you know, you should probably, you know, build one or two before you build one of these. But this should be one of the first kits you try to build. And the thing is you start this kit, you're going to have to spend about a week distressing wood. You know, you're going to get sick and tired of spending each step so long and this and that. You're going to want to build another kit in between. You know, so good companies. I've never built one of his kits. You know, to be honest, he's never answered one of my emails. But I'm going to I'll say him first, you know, just to show that I don't hold a grudge. Foscale Limited. He's been around the best kit designers out there. And I think that he modeled himself after those kit designers. So I think that what he probably has in his kit, even though I haven't seen one, I know that his kits are full-fledged learning kits. So Foscale Limited, and I say that because his kits are cheap, and they go, well, not, they're cost effective, or, you know, whatever you want to call it. They start at, you know, 30, and they'll go up to $350.
Right.
I think this kit was $400, and I love every second of it. I don't care.
All right, Ron, we got another question for us. What methods do you use for weathering techniques on your buildings when airbrushing?
I don't airbrush all that much. Airbrushing is, it's very easy to let it get out of control. And the slightest movement or wind or, you know, something that happens, and you got paint all over your windows, you know.
Right.
And if you're using acrylic, it's not like you can go back with a solvent and clean it up nice. Acrylic's not nice to clean off when it's been sprayed on, especially with an airbrush, because it's dry when it hits the surface. So I only ever use an airbrush on rolling stock and engines, and I don't do that. Like, I've only done my I don't do that on camera very much. It just shows how confident I am at my skill at it. You know, still practicing on that one.
All right,
but,
what are some of the methods of weathering that you would suggest on for kits?
So there's a lot of methods that you can use, and you need to be careful with each one, because it's better to go light and try it again than to go heavy and regret it. So I always like to use a dry brush, a dry brush, no liquid on it. Like, if you've got liquid on a brush and you put chalks on it and stuff, it's not gonna really, it's not gonna sit right. You know, it's gonna dab, it's gonna pool up. You know, so I like to have the dry brush. So when I paint structures and I weather them, I like to dry brush with it too. Like, I'll use, if say it's a white clapboard, I'll use a gray or a buff. A buff is kind of like a yellowy tan type of color, and I'll dry brush it over areas just to show, like, you know, the dust on the bottom of a locomotive, you know, that type of weathering on the bottom of a building or something like that. You know, dry brushing it's the mainstay of painting. It's the top tip. But so let me talk about other ones.
All right, we got another question on about weathering, Ron. It says, how about the salt weathering technique with a wood kit?
It works. It works. My friend Ed Traxler recently did it on a small building to test out how good it was. He shared it with Big Bill. Big Bill's talked about that event with Ed, and it works. It takes a lot of patience. Like you've got to put that salt down on the base coat. It sticks. You paint over top of it. You let that dry, right? And then the salt will crack apart your paint because it's salt, right? And then you hit it with the water and it dissolves, and then you lightly break it away so that there's pieces left like off the surface. You know what I mean? Right? Like flaking off. But there's other ways to do it too. I've used sand because I don't have the patience to allow the paint to go through all those steps.
Right.
But I've heard of people. I know that if you buy a Foscale kit, he likes to use a sponge for his paint, and that works for really dilapidated stuff.
What type of salt do you use for those that's not familiar with it? Is it just regular table salt, or?
Yeah, like you can use sea salt. I know Ed used sea salt because he's O scale, but normal salt, like if you want to try it on N scale, I'm sure it'll work with table salt. So however appropriate it, the situation.
All right, we got one more that wants to. What do you mean by using sand?
You see, the process of the salt technique is to have something as a barrier between the darker undercoat with the lighter overcoat. So whereas you paint the bottom with a gray, and then you come up over top with an antique white or a creamy white or something like that. Like you want to have the salt between that or the sand in between that. And then what I do is I come back with my metal brush. I have a steel brush and a brass brush, and both of them are for two different techniques. I'd try the brass brush at first to get all the sand off and stuff, and that'll peel the paint as well. Like it's not going to give as nice of effect as salt, but it's going to take about maybe 2 hours as opposed to maybe 2 or 3 days of screwing around.
Right.
So that's that.
That's that. All right, now I know you just are working on or just finished up a diorama for Rapido trains. Is that correct?
Yeah.
What all went into the design on that? Did they give you something, or did you come up with that design yourself? And if you did, how'd you go about doing it?
Okay, it's not finished yet because I have to put catenary on top now. There's a first time for everything, folks. Let me close a bunch of windows here. Okay, where's that photo? Yes, I was given a photo, and this is the way I work, really. The second I seen the photo, I said to myself, hey, I know what that part, I can do that with this. I seen that technique here, and I can do this with that. And I knew I had all the materials on hand. So there's the photo. Let me bring this up here. So can you see that?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So this is the only photo I got. And they called it the hill or the summit or I don't know. I wasn't listening to all the history and stuff like that. I was looking at all the bushes and the stuff on the side and the sheep down at the bottom in the pasture there, and in what looked like a stream down at the end where the curve is. And I noticed that there's a farmhouse on the other side. If I had the time and resources, I would have thrown that in too. But I knew that I could do the grass on the embankment with faux fur. And I knew that I could do that because I recently saw Ken Patterson do that with the what was it, the DD the turbo diesel, or no, it was the big boy photo.
Yeah, with the slide where he had the slide.
Yeah. He threw some fake fur on the side of the embankment and used a pair of clippers, right? Well, I spent a couple hours trying to screw around with those clippers, and I thought, I just couldn't do it. It was like, I don't know. I think I need shears for those sheep to do it,
Right.
So I ended up not doing anything to the faux fur, and the only texture and variation I added to it was with the spray paint cans. So I used the Krylon tan green and the Krylon tan colors. The camo colors, like those are the bomb. They're perfect. Every color on your in scenery should have a tan or a base color that's like your soil tone. And in my area, it's like a limestone and really light looking dirt, and those colors work perfect for my area. So that's the colors I like to model with. So I spray painted the faux fur. I let it hang. Like, I didn't mold it over foam. I just attached it at the top and attached it at the bottom. And let me get my photo that I used to show them that I copied it. Like, I let them sit on this for about 6 days. Never said a word to them. It was awesome.
Did they give you this photo, or is this one that you found?
No, this is the only photo I got from them.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the only photo I got. Oh, here it is right here. Now, it doesn't have track in this photo, and the pitch is off. I recognize that, but you'll get the idea, I think. So yeah, that's basically that photo in model. And since then, I've put more paint on the bank.
The fur really works out well, doesn't it?
Pardon me?
I said the fur really works out well, doesn't it?
Oh my goodness, it's insane. It's expensive. But okay, so let's do a couple of tips here. The faux fur, I found a hole in the middle of the roll. So I pointed it out to them at the cash register, started talking to the ladies about model railroading, and I got like 40% off of it or something like that. So it wasn't $30 for a yard, it was like $16 for a yard. So there's one tip. The other tip is the foam that I got was 2 sheets of 4 foot by 8 foot 1 inch foam, and each of them they were where the band comes down and wrecks the top 2 layers. Well, those 2 layers were one was it was a $24 sheet, and I got the one for $9.99 and the other one for $13.99. So I didn't need full sheets, and put to hide a couple of parts that are broken out is simple. That's what we do. That's natural variation.
Right. All right,
So that's
Ron,
that.
we got a question going back to the sand, the technique with the sand and salt. How do you get the sand or salt to stick?
Well, so I'm talking about a wood clap board here. And so if you're doing a wood clap board, something that you learn in one of the expensive kits, like the instruction manual I got on my lap, the Sierra West kit, they want you to scuff up the boards a bit. So the first step I do is I take my steel brush. I don't have it handy, of course. But you attack it with that brush along the grain, along the thing. That you'll never get scar marks like this unless your house has been attacked by a bear. So you do them across horizontally, and then when you put the sand in, you've got to first put a dark layer down first, the shadow layer. So everything I do, and this technique is based on it too, is to make the shadow first. So if it's a really old house, you might use a what's this? Pewter gray. But if it's a not so old house, maybe it's slate gray, So, the older wood gets, the more darker the tone of gray it is, Unless it's redwood or cedar, poplar. Maple and oak too, I guess. But anyways, you scuff that up, and then you put that paint down, and right after you put that paint down, you got to put the sand on it, or the
paint. Put it on while the paint's still wet, correct?
Yeah. So it's you got to brace that wood too, and that should be in the instructions. Don't say I didn't say that, because that's bad. You gotta brace the wood good before you attack it with a lot of acrylic paint, because there's a lot of water in acrylic paint, and if, like my first kit, I had to scratch build an entire side, like there was a door section, and there was this litty bitty spot, and I put the paint on it without thinking, and it just expanded like an accordion, so brace your wood. Then you put a generous coat of that gray paint. Don't worry about it. It's gonna soak in, and you're not putting I know you're not using a 4-inch outdoor brush with this. You're just using a small brush. You want to have it so that the sand's gonna stick, or the salt's gonna stick, right?
Right.
And you let that dry for a couple of seconds, because if you don't, the white that you put over top is gonna mix with the gray. So you have to let that dry for a period of time. Hit it with a dryer. If you're impatient, you can use a dryer, and don't use a paint peeler. I've got this heat gun for peeling paint.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
It's a little warm.
Hair dryer is good. And then you come back with your aged white. Now, an aged white isn't a stark white color, because there isn't. When I first got into this hobby, a gentleman I met, he passed on shortly after I met him. But he said one thing to me. He said, there's not a building in the city that didn't get pissed on by rain, or, get dirt on it. Mm-hmm. So you're never going to find a church as white as the day it's been painted, even though the parishioners clean it every Sunday, Right. It's just not going to be stark white, So you pick a white color that's off, whether it be a creamy white or aged white has a tan tone to it, so it kind of it's that's my favorite color. A product that I like to use is Dr. Ben's. The reason I like to use it is it's already thinned out. You don't have to really thin it out all that much. And then when you put it down, you dab off most of it. You know, like I said, dry brushing. So like your money shot, your last coat is going to be just a dry brush, you know, because you want those where you hit it with the brush, you want the deep sections to still be gray, you know, and if they're covered with sand, you don't want paint soaking in underneath that sand, you know, so you paint over it, but you try to dry brush. Then you come back after this last coat is dry and use your wire brush again, probably the brass one.
All right, Ron, we've got another question. It says, what's your opinion of using India inks for stains, and what tricks, mixtures, and colors?
It's an art to find out what your strength is, because everybody's a different kind of modeler. So whereas something I would use is meant to color wood, my stain on plastic would not work. It would it'd make a mess of things. So there's different formulations for different projects. Like in this, in Brett Gallant, who's credited for this, he says I think it's a tablespoon to okay, yeah. So it's a tablespoon to or a teaspoon to a pint. Teaspoon. Teaspoon. Teaspoon to a pint of alcohol, and that's probably more than what a plastic modeler is going to want. If you're not interested in experimenting in these things, a long-term stain that's going to last for a long time, and it's a video that I want to do, it's just that I want to do it right, is using shoe polish based stains. I know Hunterline.ca, a company in Canada, they have a line of stains, and you can pick what kind of weathering you want on it, and they're really realistic and they last a long time. And it's because they use an oil-based stain. It's not oxide like the the vinegar and steel wool. That disappears over time.
Okay. We had another question too. Do you use photos a lot for your references?
Always.
Always.
Yeah, like I think I'm more of a mimic, you know. Like when they showed me that photo to copy, I was stoked, you know. Like if I designed that scene myself, I probably would have put way too many trees and bushes in, you know. But because of the photo, I was able to, tone it down.
So that brings up another good point too. When you're designing your scene, how much is too much?
Yeah, right. You know, you look at you drive through the Appalachian Mountains, and I guarantee you not one of you are going to say that those mountains look like puffball mountains. There's going to be sections where the trees are out. There's going to be spots where the power lines go through. I drove through those mountains to North Carolina, you know. Like, I don't fly. So it's I lost my train of thought.
How much is too much?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So less is more. Less is always more. You know, because you can always add, and if you put in less, that spot that needs something is going to beg for it. It's going to be on your mind every time you see it until one day you're like, that's it. You're going to get something, you know?
Right. I got another question from our hostess, from our host from the most. Big Bill Graham wants to know, what level of realism are you trying to obtain when you're building a scene, and does the realism get in the way of building the project?
I listened to an old podcast today with Troels Kirk in it. And Troels Kirk is a Swedish modeler, and he's very, very inspirational to me. You know, I just look at one of his photos and I go into La La Land. And his realism is magical. It's a religious experience. But when Troels Kirk talks about it, he's not into railroads at all. He's into scenery, and most of his stuff is complete fantasy from the pictures that he has put together, like what he thinks it looks like, you know. So I'm looking for a realism that looks good in my mind. If I'm trying to copy a photo, I'm very content with just trying to copy what's in it. Like I'm very content with that. But you know, if I'm doing something from my head, it takes a long time for me to do it, you know, because I just don't want to rush those things. And I know that, you know, once you start rushing, you start doing too many things at once, and the quality goes down. You're just not happy with it.
Right.
It's like taking that girl out for that first date. You make that stuff last a long time because it's good, and it's never going to be as good as that again.
All right, we're about to the halfway point of the show tonight. I want to remind all the viewers to keep checking the YouTube Model Builders website at youtubemodelbuilders.com for all the latest news and schedule and info for the live show hosted by Big Bill Graham, which is on once a month, the EMAG, which is bi-monthly, and viewers can sign up for a subscription under the link, under the EMAG link at youtubemodelbuilders.com. The EMAG is always looking for model railroaders to send articles and pictures to be published. And don't forget about the new and improved presentations on Tuesday night. Myself and Barry and Dude and Troy are each taking one night a month. So be sure to check those out and show your support for YouTube Model Builders. All right, Ron, we've got another question for you here. It says, have you ever built cardboard structures or paper models, and how do you get realism?
It's I've built a couple. I never accomplished what I wanted to because I didn't have the experience. It was about 6 years ago. But my friend Edward Traxler is doing stuff with paper today that you wouldn't be able to think. Like, I was looking right at it, and it's impossible to tell that it's paper. You know, he takes like, you know, you got to think outside the box. You know, you think of this paper wall, you print it out, it's got clapboard siding. Well, if you print out that wall itself, it's going to look pretty flat, right? But if you print out about 3 copies of that wall and you cut out a couple of those you know, the siding, what am I trying to say? You know, the siding boards, and you layer them over top of each other so that you use a marker on the edge of the paper so you can't see the little white mark, but you layer them on top of each other, then you start getting a depth from the paper being layered on top of each other. Now with the added depth of the shadowing and stuff like that, because those paper, they just look great. Great. You know, they get them so it almost makes your real stuff look like crap. You know, so you know, it's a juggling act. You know, sometimes you got to tone down the look of this brick building because I've been in a situation where the client liked this building so much where the paper building was going to overshadow it in every way, you know, so it got toned down a little bit, you know,
Right.
which was darkening it in Photoshop and then reprinting it.
I know, going back to the North Carolina layout that you did, now there was a lot of detailed scenes that went into all that. Can you kind of go into that and maybe show some of the scenes and explain them?
Sure. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go back to this layout to finish it off, but there's a couple of scenes that I'm not happy with that I wish I was able to. So this is in a folder. We'll pick this one and booyah. So this layout had 2 sections to it. Well, 3 sections. There was a circus layout in the middle that I never built. I didn't have anything to do with it. And then there was 2 layouts on either side that were both built before I got there, but there was no track on them. So what I built this layout. This is that same scene at a different angle, and it started at one wall and went 11 feet to bridge the 2 layouts. So this is the end of the cabinet. You can see the cabinet in the bottom right-hand corner. So this is the end of the layout that was built on one side, and this is the next scene there. And we're moving along the layout here. That's a crap shot. The little Fowler hotel or hospital there. Uh-oh, there's a photo stack. Now, in this corner, you can see a bunch of buildings that were bought off of eBay. So what we did was we put them over into the seedy side of town. Oh, I gotta find some good photos here. I just put all my photos raw into the thing. Okay, so here's a photo of the... Now, I never built any of this. This is the... You don't see that, do you?
Yeah, we see you.
Jeez. There you go. Are you focused on me, Geno?
Yeah, you're presented.
Okay, good. So this is the one layout that's separate from everything.
Now, this was already built when you got there?
Yeah, and I'm about to show you what it looked like before I got there. That's what it looked like on my summer trip there. So there wasn't even a table there yet. There was a closet in the corner, as you can see on the right side, or maybe on the left side on the hangouts. I don't know how it works. So I built this entire section. That's viewed here, and trying to find scenes. So these photos. This is the picture of the cabinet on the far side, and this one was built before I got there too. So those are my buildings are on the table there. Imagine that, and Lund Studios kits, and I built more than a few CMR kits. A bunch of CMRs in Lund Studios. I know there's a bunch of other modelers who built custom stuff like the mirrored buildings, and these buildings over here were all made by another modeler.
Hey Ron, did you scratch build all of your overhead railroad that you got through that town that you've been? I guess that's your layout.
Which one do you mean? The harbor scene?
I think that's the one that you've been in a hangout a couple times on building it. It's almost like it's a subway above, but of course it's not. It's an actual railroad.
I think you're talking about the elevated track you put in North Carolina.
Yeah, that was at this layout. That was at this layout here.
Oh, okay. Did you scratch build most of that?
No, that's a product from Imagine That Laser Art, and that's how I got the gig, was through them. That's how usually how you know one gets into this line of business too, which is probably a question your viewers would like to know. Is you start building for you just start building kits, and then you go to a manufacturer and show them what you can do, and if they don't like your prices and they like your temperament, I laugh facetiously. That this is where you get your gigs. So. Imagine That Laser Art got a great big order for 80 feet of elevated trackage, and they literally came to my house with a great big box of parts. Like it wasn't put in bags. Like who would, like that would be such a waste of time, you know. It didn't come with instructions or nothing either, because I've built so many of them in the past. So.
Now, is that layout operational, Ron, or is it just a static display?
What's this one right here?
The North Carolina one.
Yeah, like there's automated parts everywhere. I'm gonna get. Oh, look at that! I love that shot. There's a video right here. I'll try to catch it. I hope there's nothing nasty in it. You never know. This is live. Okay, here we go. You see that?
Yeah.
So as you can see, many of the rides are automated in the carnival layout. Now on the city, it was all lighted. There's nighttime lighting and daytime lighting. There's sound modules throughout. Before I got there, though, there was zero trackage. So my job was to put in a DC circuit that had automated stopping points. And I got a lot of build videos from I'm going to try to find that video. Oh, actually I can't. I'm sorry, I can't show it. It's got a lot of swearing in it. It was really celebratory. But the thing I had 6 passenger stations for a Metro line on the front of the layout, and I had to use Circuitron AR2s. Well, it was one Circuitron AR2 and 6 AR1s. And the reason for that is the AR2 has a delay unit on it, and that's only required for its delay capacity and to reverse the circuit at the ends of the layout, because it's a point-to-point. Now, the AR1s are simply there to trigger the delay unit. So you put in the photo eyes, and you got to isolate each one to make sure that you know exactly how each one's set. And that was the first time ever doing that. You just call the manufacturer. They're human. You have a great conversation with the very technical guy. He laughs at you with your stupid questions. It's great. But I accomplished it.
All right, got another question from Bill. It says, Ron, on your builds that you do, it starts out, let's see, it starts out what you thought you wanted. Does it end up the way you planned?
No, rarely. Rarely. There's always something I'm disappointed with, and I'll give you an example right here. There was a deal on Walther's Soline kits. Now, like everybody else, the second you seen Gary Christensen's model in Model Railroad Hobbyist, you thought to yourself, man, I want to try that, So I bought a couple of cheapos, Walther's cars, for, I don't know what they were, like $12 or something like that. And I tried to put my lacquer-based dull coat, and it did this to the lettering. So the second I get disappointed with something, it goes put to the side, and I'll wait till I come up with a plan for it, So that's what takes me so long with building some kits, And thank God when I'm building a client's kit, it's always just a small kit, like nobody wants, there's no difference between a plumber, a warehouse worker's rate of pay, Well, maybe there is a difference, but you know what I mean. Like, you work, you get paid for it, So being an artist is no different. So one of the biggest problems with this whole thing is having somebody understand what how much you're worth, how much you say you're worth, because that's what it comes down to. You price yourself out, and they got to accept it or pick somebody else.
All right. When it comes down to wood versus plastic, what do you prefer and why?
Wood. Wood for most things. Plastic, like styrene for some things. Like you never get wood to look like steel. So styrene has its place in many ways. However, I'll often use cereal box in place of styrene. Actually, the only styrene I get is when I build a Woodland Scenics kit. The roof pieces. Mm-hmm. I never use those. I put cereal box in for the roof, so those are my only way I ever get styrene. But cereal box is probably used just as much as wood.
What are some of the other things that you find that you use from around the house that's not normally, somebody wouldn't think of normally using for modeling?
Future floor wax. Future floor wax.
There's a technique for that for windows, is there not?
Yeah, but the technique that's going around doesn't work, because if the technique doesn't have legs, if it don't last, then it's a crap technique. So if you use future floor wax to glue in your windows, and in 2 years' time through a hot summer or something like that, a cold winter, you know, what have you. You had a wood stove in the shop, whatever happens, and that window curls up and that window falls off and it's glued to the layout, you know,
You're stuck with it.
yeah, that sucks, you know. So I use carpet tape. I get a big roll of carpet tape. I cut it up with a razor. I like to use scalpels. I don't know why. I found a source for them. They're always sharp. They throw away. But I cut carpet tape up, which is basically two-sided tape, and I glue my windows in. And then you can come back with your future floor wax. And future floor wax, you use an eyedropper or something, a very little amount, because you don't really want it on the munions. You just want it on the window. You don't want your munions shiny. You want your munions dull. But you want your window to be shiny so that when you look at it, you don't see right through it. You see yourself, right?
Right.
Or you see, you know, a shine, you know, the sunlight, or, you know, something like that. But don't buy that idea that future floor wax is going to glue acetate to your building from the inside. It's not going to work for a long time. Acetate's going to curl, and the only way to keep acetate in there is to use a 3M tape, carpet tape, or of some kind, you know. Not 3M. 3M's from London, about an hour from here. I guess I'm biased.
Have you ever used the future floor wax for water?
Yes. I used it for Streeters in Clearbrook, the original water, and I sent an email to Dave Frary, and he talked about it on a podcast, and he didn't know what to think about it, and I didn't know what to think about it at the time either, but that doesn't last either. You only find out about that the hard way, right? It was a great idea, right, but you gotta wait a year to find out that it turns milky white over time. So I had to paint over it with a dark blue, and then I came back over with a polyurethane gloss coat.
Okay. All right. What other tips and techniques do you feel like you can pass along to us for somebody that's just getting into the building kits, and what are some of the trouble spots I need to look for and avoid, and some helpful hints on getting them started in scratch building?
I can't, like, the best thing to do is just to jump in there and make an investment on a kit. It's an investment in your modeling, and buy a few cheap kits. Think of them as throwaways, you know, but buy a few cheap kits and then go to an expensive kit. Pick one that you really like. I'm going to share a website right here. I got so many windows open now. I guess I just do this. Uh-oh. Yikes! Entire screen. So you can see if I have a crazy chat going on in the background. So this is Bar Mills. Now this is a company that sells they call them Craftsman Structure kits. And they've got good instructions. The thing is they're old. You know, they're the kind of kits that you know, you can really see yourself building. This Booty's Corner, it's a great kit. It's really easy to build. One of the most important kits that you can build is one that corners really well, you know, so that you get a nice substantial scene. So how much is this one? Come on here now. I don't know how to use this site. Oh, 134. That's expensive. I thought it was going to be cheaper than that. Bar Mills, Foscale Limited, but this kit company right here, Rail Scale Miniatures, this is a lesser known company. So if you're thinking about, I built this kit. This is one of my first Craftsman kits. This is one of the first Craftsman kits I built, and it was such a learning experience. And if you look at the scenes involved in this, this is all Canadian prototype buildings. The designer's Canadian, but you can see how like it's the down home feel, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like look at the rail and that's anywhere in North America right there, you know. And to do all these techniques, the scenery, he talks about all of it. The hydro poles, the graffiti. You got to put that poster on the wall. All those posters are in the kit. The lettering on the bookstore on the left. It's you know, it was made out of clear styrene, laser cut styrene. You glue it on top. This Carrick's Bakery to the right, it has it comes with water putty, and you use aged concrete, and with the water putty you make stucco on top of wood. It's a technique that I use like whenever I can. Like I use it on bridges, anything I want to make look like concrete, you know. It's so cool.
Now, how do you do that now? Explain that, putting that together. The stucco. How do you mix it up?
So you don't mix it up. It's the powder, you know. So you take your brush. Let me wave a stick around in the air at you for a second here. Stop this crazy stuff. Twilight Zone. So you take your old crappy brush with, you see that it's all folded off to the side and stuff like that, because once you get the powder into this brush with paint, you're never going to get it out. It's going to be done, for lack of a better word. So what you do is you dip it in the powder dry, and that'll pick up powder, and then you dip it. Well, you don't dip it into the aged paint. You have the aged concrete to the side, because you don't want to get the powder into the paint because it'll screw it up. So you get some over to the side, and you dip it into the powder, dip it into the paint, then you dab it on the building. You don't brush it on the building. You got to dab it, and it's the moisture from the paint soaks into the wood. It's colored the putty powder. And the putty powder doesn't turn into a plaster type of mud. It kind of stays as a powder. I've recently seen somebody use talcum powder too. But so yeah, that's that technique.
Would baby powder work with that as well, or is it too thin or too fine?
What? Pardon me?
Would baby powder work for that too, or is it too fine?
I'd experiment. It probably could work. And I know the other guy, he painted his structure and left it wet like the sand technique, you know, and then came back with the talcum powder and poured it on top. And what that does, it gives it a chalky, dry look, you know. Like painting a concrete bridge gray does not give it any type of texture whatsoever. So anything you can do to add texture to that adds quality.
Bill wants to know what's the name of the powder.
Oh, it's a very popular name. Williams Water Putty. Google's never failed me yet. Water putty. Durham's. That's it. Durham's Water Putty. Waterputty.com with Putty. That's the stuff right there. That's exactly the stuff. And this kit came with a the kit that I was showing on rail scale miniatures. Those kits come with a wire bound book, just like a Sierra West kit. They're expensive. They're a lot more than you want to spend, but it's gonna have a checklist of parts. In the back of this book is a checklist of materials that it wants you to get. A whole page of stuff. It's the grocery store list. The old lady says, you want to build a nice kit, here's your list. You go to the hobby shop, you buy the stuff. It's going to be expensive. But all this stuff that I bought for this kit, I've been using over the last 6 years on other stuff. And if it was the best stuff to go on this expensive kit, why isn't it the best stuff for my other stuff? It is the best stuff. So you will not regret. The only thing you'll regret about buying one of these kits is telling one of your friends how much it costs, because they just will not understand.
All right, we've got a question, Ron. This is, what kind of trees do you use for your scenes?
Long shadows.
Long shadows trees. One more. What method do you use to super detail your trees?
I've used super trees in the past. It's all about the color. I'm often spray painting them and stuff to get a nice earthy tone. I find that many trees that come today are too bright in color. I like to tone them down to a more like that camo green, the real not the dark green, the light green, the camo green. That's like khaki pants. Like, that's awesome. That stuff's great. You know, you can put that even where it shouldn't be, you know, because color variation, that's something that'll fit in most of your palette, you know.
Or do you spray over them after you've got them set in your scene, or do you do it before you plant them?
Before I plant them. I've seen people put yellow ground foam on top to simulate sunlight, and you know, that's only good for photography. Let me say that 5 times fast. It's really not worth it, because it's going to be collecting dust. And trees are hard to dust off.
Yes, they are.
You can't glue them into the layout. You got to put them into with a big stick, so that it sits in nice, but you can pull them off and, you know, give them a blow.
All right, the Bill from D8 South Central Division wants to know, have you used Silph trees?
No, but I had a conversation recently about furnace filter trees, and I think that furnace filter is a material you want to look at.
You want to explain that technique a little bit?
It's not something that I've used, so I can't really explain it. I know Sven has the tricks on that, because he showed me something.
I've used them, Ron.
Yeah.
And yeah, I really like them, and they're inexpensive. I really do, and I don't know. Those are the only trees that I've ever built.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I've never tried the, what are they called, the where you take a piece of wire and you put the rope in there and then you twist them.
Yeah, and then you put the flower tape over top of it.
Yeah, you know, I've always done the furnace filters, and you know, of course, pine trees. You know, as far as I know, you can only do pine trees in the the furnace filters. But other than that, they've turned out great.
Trees are there's a lot of them on your layout, and you've got to put a worth on your time. Like I could spend a lot of time fixing up a manhole and stuff like that, but you gotta. It's been said already on the show. When's good enough, right? So the amount of time that you put into a tree, you've got to have levels of detail. The hero tree that's at the front of the layout, and his ugly cousins that live at the back of the layout. You know what I mean? Like, it's buying trees, and I'm not talking about buying those woodland scenic trees that has hot glue, unpainted hot glue hanging all over the place. That's a hot mess. That crap, But I don't want to sound like I'm pimping his stuff, but Long Shadows isn't a waste of your money, really, if you consider the amount of money your time is worth. But if you've got the ability to get this stuff for real cheap and you're interested in this kind of scenery, that's really relaxing stuff.
Yeah.
Yep. I know you mentioned about in the back of the scene, kind of going from front to back. Do you put most of your details up front, or do you try to spread it out evenly over the scene? What's your thought process when it comes to that?
Well,
and how detailed do you go into detail parts with your scene?
See, for my personal stuff is way different than a client's layout, because a client's layout is usually always has a front and a back. It's always up against the wall. But for I've got an 8-foot yard. They're basically both photo props. They're wired up for DCC, but I'm not real into chasing the trains around. I'm into dreaming up something and building it. You know what I mean? Not to say there's anything wrong with operations. I had a whole bunch of fun when I do it, but my modules are both, they get flipped around. So when you hear me say that I screwed up this thing and I put it aside, for Marksbury's Cove, I go from looking out at the ocean to turning it around to looking from the ocean onto the shore. So it's a whole different point of view to detail. So
right.
And realistically, nobody would pay what it's worth. With the amount of time and effort that I put into it, like, any price that I sold it for would be an extreme cut from the actual labor value, But like I said, an example of the layout for the customer, of course, the customer always wants to put as much detail in the back as he does in the front. Another thing is they always want the road to go off forever. Like, meaning that you see a road and then you see a blue sky wall and it just stops. So it's not the detail at the inside of the layout that you're looking for. It's the details that you're hiding. So I don't want any street up against the wall to be a straight-on dead end or goes forever look, because you'll never get that street to really look right. And in these rare rural situations, you can't avoid it, but I still curve the road on the backdrop. I don't want that road to go off forever. I don't want that to happen. you know, so I curve things off, or I curve the road off before the wall and cut that road off. But it's just that you don't want to ruin the magic at the end of the road, you know. So you don't need the detail of people back there. Nobody's ever going to see it, but you don't want to have that mistaken, that you know, the blatant unrealistic view. You know, you hide those blatant flaws, and each one you hide makes things look better.
Blending the scene is an art form in itself.
Yeah, yeah. And it's something that you don't get the first time. It's something that it starts to bug you over time. Or it may bug you. It should bug you.
Yeah. Let's see. John Daly, which I think we covered this earlier. Has anyone used salt weathering? I think we covered that pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay. You got anything else you want to add to that, Ron? Or?
No, we beat that horse to death. It'll be in the after show. You watch it from the start. This is all good stuff. I guess that's why they call me arrogant.
You're right, Ron.
Thank you.
All right. What's the let's go over backdrops for just a little bit, Ron. What's the best to use for backdrops to get the realistic look with the clouds? I guess is the biggest issue with everybody. Everybody has an opinion on clouds.
Well, I had a conversation with Brett Gallant the other day. He's the owner of Sierra West Scale Models. I'm doing videos on YouTube, and I wanted to get his blessing for talking about his stuff online. You know, you never know if you're, you know, this is a great big book that he made. Maybe I'm giving some trade secrets, and maybe he'll be choked and want to choke me when he sees me, you know. So I want to avoid that, and I want to give him credit and stuff like that. So he told me, you know, as long as you give me credit and don't take credit for this stuff, you know, I don't mind you doing that. So I have to give credit for who taught me my backdrops. I forget his name. But I saw it on Train Masters TV. Now, I'm going to make the case for this Train Masters TV. You're not restricted by what you can watch. You can watch it all day long, all night long, for as long as your subscription lasts. So you're not restricted by that sense. There's a lot of tips in there, and it's cheap. You don't have to do it for a year, subscribe for a year. You subscribe for a month, you're going to get a lot of tips from, you know, Miles Hale, who was on the YouTube Model Builders show. Miles Hale is one of the pioneers of the modern hobby. Like, Miles Hale knows every single important person in this hobby today, you know. So there's a case for Train Masters TV. So my backdrop tip I learned from them, and it was basically you make a paper template that's in a way that you don't have to paint the clouds. You know, you don't have to grab your spray paint can and go like this. You just spray it against the template. You know, and that's all you need to do. And it's you experiment with that. Flat white paint on the top. Put a little bit of gray on the bottom. I screwed it right up when I thought I screwed it right up when I did it on these panels behind me. But I still have those clouds in the photos, and they don't bug me at all. You know, they might bug other people, but I think they look awesome, and it took 20 seconds to do.
Right.
It was done. Done in 20 seconds.
All right. Ron, have you ever used mirrors?
No. No. Never had the opportunity to, but I had planned to do that in North Carolina, but I had a lot of work. Like I had to do that 11-foot. I think it was 11 feet. It could be 9 feet. Who knows what the distance was? But I had to do that in 3 weeks, and I worked every single day for 3 weeks, and I worked for the least amount of time was 5 hours, but the average workday was 10-hour days, and I was working my butt off. So the mirrors didn't make it in. I had parts planned for it, but an unfortunate incident kind of screwed all that up.
I got a question from Philip Wyman. Do you want your backdrop to be low detail to bring out the model detail in the front to pop?
Yeah, okay. For mine, yes. I had a conversation with the wife the other day. She said it'd be nice if you put trees on this thing, and I said, well, what about when I turn the marine module around and we're looking out at the ocean and there's a couple of aspen there? It's not going to work. So mine has to be basic for being the photographic backdrop it is, right? Like my goal is to practice on these things and start getting good at that stuff. Like you always have to be interested in something, and I'm real interested in these cars and painting them. That stuff looks like it's fun. So I have to have a nice little photo area to take photos of these things because, when you share photos and you don't take a good picture, you could have the best model in the world. But if you've got a crappy model and you take it under the best of conditions, you make that model look better, So if you do a fairly good job, you make it look better, and right. These photographic techniques are important, especially if your interest is in sharing what you're doing, and that's how I get new work. So,
have you ever used a photo for a backdrop?
No, and thanks for bringing that up because I wanted to say something about Richie or what's his name, Ricard. What's his name?
Joey Ricard.
Joey Ricard. Now that stuff looks great, doesn't it?
It does.
It looks really good. And there's another gentleman who's friends with Joey who does these engines, and all he has is the photograph. There's no trees. And it looks top notch. You know what I mean? So there's a case for it. And the reason why I don't use them is because my modules get turned around, like I explained, so I have to have a neutral background. But if you've got a wall, there's a case for these photographic backdrops.
All right, got another question. How do you approach rust? Rust is never just dark. How do you make it look real? Make it look like real rust with all its different hues.
Texture. But it all starts with paint. You've got to put down something that's not going to disappear. If you put powder by itself, if you put dull coat over it, it's going to disappear. But if you put this stuff down, an acrylic paint, this is burnt sienna, that's a little light. This would be one of the last layers. You probably want to put burnt umber, the brown one, as your base dot of a piece of rust. You put this around the outside, and then you use your oils, your water-soluble oils. You can pull down rust with your lacquer thinner, or you can use, or you can just use the acrylic like that. You don't have to do that fancy lacquer thinner stuff. You can just put powders on top of that, and you kind of try to do the same technique as the water putty, but you use the powders in the paint. That powder texture just like the concrete in a piece of rust is it gives it depth. It makes it look real, you know.
Have you
Rust.
ever
Go ahead.
have you ever tried using the salt technique on rust?
I'm not big on the salt technique. Mostly because I just don't have the time to, or like, that's a patience I don't have time for, you know, like, I like to work with shadow. I like to dry brush my peeling paint. I like to make peeling paint with the absence of paint rather than to put it on and pull it off, you know? So when I dry brush, I take a lot of paint off of it, you know. And if you buy one of those fine scale miniatures kit by George Celios, we're gonna lose that guy one day. You know, he's getting real old, and his kits have been around since the 70s. They're the original Craftsman kit. Those yellow boxes, they, you know, you buy the old ones, it'll have products that aren't even available anymore. But like, he's got amazing tips. You know, I would have never thought of making the inside of my car shop, scratch build car shop, painting the 2x4s, the framed wall, grimy black. But that's what he tells you to do. Paint those things grimy black, and then put your ink and alcohol stained boards on top of that wall, you know, and he gives you the templates and stuff like that, and it's such a good looking kit, you know, and it's scratch build. It's a box of sticks. So again, I forgot what I was talking about. You guys are putting me on the spot here.
It's good stuff, Ron. Real good stuff.
I hope I don't sound like a, I don't know how to, I can't swear on this, can I?
No.
BSer. I hope I don't sound like a BSer.
If there's any one modeler that you could meet, who would it be?
Oh, good question. Because there's all these great modelers, but they'll all disappoint you. You know, they're not all like so friendly and stuff like that. Like Trolls Kirk's one of my favorite modelers, right? And we'd get along because we're right into art and we're not into the trains at all. So I'd like to meet Trolls Kirk, but whereas if I went and met Bob Van Gelder of South River Model Works or Brett Gallant, we might not get along so well because we're not. Oh, Bob Van Gelder is an ex-art teacher, I think. So we'd probably, and he plays guitar, so we'd probably get along. But I don't know, like, I think Trolls Kirk. Yeah, definitely.
Nice.
And you search for Trolls Kirk, TROELSKIRK. on Google and look for the link that goes to the railroad line forums. You'll see some unbelievable paper modeling. Unbelievable. Mark my words.
All right. Anybody else got any questions for Ron? Well, if there are no other questions, I think we'll wind this one down for this evening. We've beaten, battled, and struggled through my first show amongst all the technical difficulties and my stuttering through this little script I got to read here. But hopefully these will get better as they go on. I want to graciously thank...
You did a great job, Geno.
Graciously thank Ron for participating with us tonight and shared some good information. I really appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Welcome back anytime, brother. I want to remind everybody one more time about the YouTube Model Builders website. You can go there for all the information about the YouTube Model Builders live show hosted by Big Bill Graham, which comes on once a month. the EMAG, which is bi-monthly, and the latest edition is due out this month. Just click on the yellow EMAG tab on the website, and you'll find all the information about the EMAG. And the new Hangout format presentations, and myself, Barry, Troy, and Dude will be picking up one of these presentation hangouts once a month. And next Tuesday night will be Troy. And Troy, if you want to give a little prep about your hangout coming up next month or next week.
Yes, we have a special gentleman. I can't quite remember his name as Sven is on here.
Jim Lincoln.
Jim Lincoln for reliable track work. So if there's anything you guys want to know about track work or anything like that, this will be a great presentation with Jim Lincoln and everything else that he has to share, and even with detailing track and everything else. I think the biggest thing is to go ahead and have it all reliable, and I think that's probably a big issue that a lot of people end up having.
Good deal. Looking forward to it, buddy. And again, I want to thank everybody on the panel, all the questions that were asked tonight. I really do appreciate it. And hopefully I'll see you next month. And we'll sign off. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you all very much.
Good night, Geno.
Good
Thank
job,
you, Geno.
Geno.
Thanks, Ron.
Thanks.